Why does the human keep rejecting me? The alien princess finally demanded an answer. The first light of Virelia's twin suns painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The clouds shimmered like liquid metal, drifting slowly across the horizon. Princess Lyra stood on the balcony of her palace, her eyes following the distant shape of a human spaceship descending toward the planet. She had waited for this day for months. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and her people had little knowledge of them beyond legends and reports from other civilizations. But Lyra had always been curious. Something about humans fascinated her. When she first heard that a human envoy was coming to Virelia, she had immediately taken charge of the preparations. She wanted everything perfect. The palace gardens had been trimmed and polished, the crystal halls cleaned to a gleam, and the ceremonial welcome arranged with precision. Yet, as she watched the spaceship approach, she felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She had never felt this way about a visitor before, and she could not understand why a simple human could make her heart beat faster. The spaceship landed gracefully in the central plaza, kicking up clouds of silver dust from the alien soil. Guards and aides lined the pathways as the human envoy emerged. Lyra had heard his name, Captain Ethan Gray. He was tall, with broad shoulders, and his movements were confident yet unpretentious. There was no grandeur about him, no exaggerated gestures to show authority. Yet Lyra felt drawn to him immediately. Lyra descended the palace steps with a grace that came from generations of royal training. She wore a flowing robe of deep violet, embroidered with threads that glimmered like starlight. As she approached, Ethan bowed politely, his expression calm but curious. "Welcome to Virelia, Captain Gray," Lyra said, her voice smooth and melodic. "We are honored by your presence." "Thank you, Princess Lyra," Ethan replied. His tone was respectful, but there was an ease in the way he spoke that made her feel he was comfortable around her, despite being a stranger on her planet. Lyra gestured for him to follow her into the palace. She wanted to show him the best her world had to offer, hoping he would be impressed. As they walked through the grand halls, Lyra noticed the small details in his reactions, the way his eyes lingered on the intricate carvings, the soft hum of appreciation he gave at the sight of a sparkling water fountain. It pleased her, but it was not the reaction she had expected. She wanted admiration, perhaps even awe, yet Ethan seemed more interested in understanding than in being dazzled. The first few hours were filled with introductions and explanations. Lyra showed Ethan the palace library, where thousands of historical records and scientific texts were stored. She explained the workings of Virelia's technology, their methods of energy production, and their advanced medical systems. Ethan listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions, but he did not seem overwhelmed by the knowledge. Instead, he nodded, made notes, and occasionally smiled in quiet appreciation. Lyra began to feel a strange frustration. She was used to people being impressed by her achievements, by the wonders of her world, by her status as a princess. But Ethan, he seemed immune. Not rude, certainly not dismissive, but there was no spark of excitement in his eyes. She could not understand it. After the tour, Lyra decided to take Ethan to the palace gardens. The gardens were her pride, a sprawling labyrinth of bioluminescent flowers, crystal-clear ponds, and statues carved from rare minerals. At night, the flowers glowed softly, creating a dreamlike atmosphere. Lyra had expected him to gasp in wonder, to ask questions about how the plants thrived in the alien soil, or to comment on the artistry of the statues. Yet, Ethan walked quietly, touching a flower gently, observing the water ripple in a pond, but saying little. "It is beautiful," he said finally, his voice calm. "Your world is very alive." Lyra felt a pang of disappointment. "Alive," she repeated, her tone carrying a hint of curiosity and challenge. "Is that all you see, the life of the planet?" Ethan looked at her as if noticing her presence fully for the first time. "I see many things," he said, But what matters most to me is understanding it, not just looking at it. Beauty is one thing, but knowing why it exists, that is what I value." Lyra blinked. His words were unexpected. There was a logic to them that she had not anticipated. Most beings in her world admired her for status, for power, for appearances. But Ethan, he seemed to see beyond that. She felt a mixture of intrigue and frustration. Why did he not admire her? Why did he not respond as others did? The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the gardens. Lyra invited Ethan to a small terrace overlooking the city. The lights of Violia sparkled like a sea of stars below. She tried another approach, one she thought would capture his attention. "I have prepared something special for tonight," she said, gesturing to a hovering platform that slowly rose into the air. The platform was adorned with holographic projections of Violia's history, battles, scientific discoveries, and cultural achievements. It was a display meant to impress any visitor. Ethan watched silently, his eyes scanning the holograms carefully. When the display ended, he turned to her. "It is remarkable," he said, but again there was no awe, no emotional reaction that she had expected. Lyra's frustration grew. She was used to being admired, used to having others respond to her in predictable ways. Ethan's calm, thoughtful demeanor was a challenge she did not understand. And yet the more she tried to provoke admiration, the more she realized that it was his quiet strength, his steady presence that drew her in. As the night deepened, Lyra finally spoke openly. "Captain Gray, you have seen much of my world today. You have witnessed its wonders. Yet, you do not seem impressed. Why?" Ethan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I am impressed, Princess," he said finally. "But I do not measure wonder in the same way your people do. I respect knowledge, courage, and effort more than grandeur or status. I look for understanding, not just spectacle." Lyra considered his words. They were not what she wanted to hear, but they made sense in a way that fascinated her. Humans were different, she realized. Not easily swayed by appearances, not drawn to power for its own sake. And yet, she could not stop thinking about him. The next few days passed quickly. Lyra attempted other gestures, gifts of rare minerals, displays of advanced technology, even invitations to lavish celebrations. But Ethan remained consistent. He accepted her hospitality graciously, but remained distant, polite but firm in his own principles. Lyra began to study him, observing not just what he did, but how he thought. She realized that Ethan's strength lay not in what he could show, but in what he chose to do. His courage, his care for others, his quiet determination, all of these were traits that her own people often overlooked, favoring brilliance or appearance instead. One evening, while walking through the palace corridors, Lyra found Ethan helping a young Violian engineer fix a malfunctioning device. He knelt patiently, guiding the engineer's hands, explaining principles with care. Lyra watched from a distance, her curiosity growing. Here was a human, far from his own world, taking the time to teach and to understand. It was not impressive in the way her displays were, but it was remarkable in its own way. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She stood again on the balcony, staring at the stars above. Questions filled her mind. Why did humans value understanding over admiration? Why did they measure worth in deeds rather than in gifts or status? And most importantly, why did she feel so drawn to this human who refused to be impressed? For the first time, Lyra understood that she could not win his admiration in the ways she had always used before. She would have to approach him differently. She would have to learn his ways, understand his values, and perhaps, in doing so, she might earn not just his respect, but something deeper. As the twin suns began to rise once more, Lyra made a decision. She would observe, she would learn, and she would not rely on her title or her wealth to win him over. She would have to discover what it truly meant to connect with a human, and perhaps, in the process, she would discover something new about herself as well. The human envoy had come to Violia to negotiate trade. But unknowingly, he had arrived at the beginning of a journey that would challenge an alien princess in ways she had never imagined. And Lyra, who had always believed that admiration could be commanded, realized that some lessons could only be learned through patience, understanding, and the quiet strength of a human heart. And so, the story of Princess Lyra and Captain Ethan Gray began, not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with curiosity, observation, and a mystery that neither of them yet fully understood. The next morning, Violia awoke under the soft glow of its twin suns. Princess Lyra had decided that to understand the human better, she needed to spend more time observing him in action. She wanted to see what made him tick, what drove him, and why he valued things so differently from her own people. Ethan Gray had started his day with the crew of the human envoy. Lyra followed discreetly at first, hiding behind the pillars of the palace's training hall. She watched him speak to the engineers and officers, not with commands or authority, but with questions and suggestions. Every decision he made seemed deliberate, measured, and fair. Lyra was impressed by his ability to inspire cooperation without demanding it. His leadership was subtle but effective, something she had never seen in the hierarchical structures of her world. Curious, she stepped closer. Ethan noticed her presence but did not react with surprise. Instead, he smiled politely and continued his work. "Princess Lyra, would you like to see how we prepare for exploration missions?" he asked, his tone calm and inclusive. Lyra nodded eagerly. She had expected a grand demonstration, something that would dazzle her with technology or show his skill. Instead, he led her to a simple training area where humans practiced physical exercises, mental simulations, and teamwork drills. "These are basic routines for us," he explained, "but they teach discipline, cooperation, and problem-solving. These are the things we value most." Lyra watched as the humans worked together. When one faltered, another would offer guidance or encouragement. When a mistake happened, it was treated as a learning opportunity rather than a failure. She had never seen such patience before, and it fascinated her. In Violia, mistakes were often punished or hidden. Here, they were embraced as part of growth. After the exercises, Ethan took Lyra to the ship's observation deck. From there, they could see Violia's sprawling cities, the luminous forests, and the glowing rivers that ran like liquid light through the planet. He pointed out landmarks and described the work the human crew would do in the coming days. Lyra listened, noting how calmly and clearly he communicated. There was no arrogance, no pretense, only focus and clarity. "I find it strange," Lyra said after a pause, "that your people do not seek admiration. On Violia, even the smallest achievement is celebrated loudly." Ethan smiled. "We believe that respect must be earned, not given. Admiration is not automatic. It comes from action, integrity, and care for others." Lyra pondered his words. They were simple, yet they carried a wisdom her people often overlooked. She realized that she had been trying to impress him with displays of wealth, knowledge, and status. But humans, it seemed, were different. They valued deeds over appearances, sincerity over spectacle. Over the next few days, Lyra continued to spend time with Ethan and his crew. She joined them on walks through the bioluminescent forests, where strange glowing plants lit their path. She helped carry supplies and observed the crew's methods for surveying and studying the environment. Every day, she noticed small things: how Ethan listened to others, how he offered help without being asked, how he made sure everyone felt included. One evening, during a break in their work, Lyra asked a question that had been on her mind since the beginning. "Captain Gray, why do you seem so distant from me? I have tried to show you the best of Violia, yet you do not respond as I expected." Ethan considered her question carefully. He looked out at the glowing horizon before answering. "I am not distant, Princess. I am cautious. I do not know your world as well as you do, and I want to understand it before forming an opinion. But it is not just about the planet or its wonders. I judge people by their actions, not their status or gifts. Lyra felt a mix of frustration and intrigue. She had never encountered someone who valued deeds over appearances. In her world, a display of wealth or knowledge could win loyalty and admiration instantly. But here, it seemed that patience, understanding, and courage were what truly mattered. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She wandered the palace gardens, thinking about Ethan and his crew. She realized that she wanted more than admiration. She wanted to understand him, to connect with him on a level deeper than appearances. And she knew that to do so, she would have to learn the ways of humans. The following morning, the human envoy received a message from their home system. A hostile faction had been moving through nearby sectors, attacking trade convoys and research ships. Captain Gray's team had been sent to negotiate with Violia, partly because of its strategic location. Now, the situation had become urgent. Lyra observed as Ethan calmly assessed the message, considering the risks and preparing a plan. He organized his crew efficiently, assigning tasks and ensuring everyone understood their roles. There was no panic, no grand displays of power. His leadership was quiet, deliberate, and effective. Lyra felt admiration stir within her, though it was not the type she had expected. It was admiration for his mind, his courage, and his ability to act under pressure. The princess offered her assistance. "We have advanced defense systems," she said. "Perhaps they could help your crew." Ethan nodded. "Your help would be appreciated, princess. But we must also rely on our skills and judgment. Cooperation is key." Lyra realized that he did not see her contribution as a way to elevate her status. He saw it as part of the team effort, and in that, she found herself respecting him even more. She decided to follow his approach, not trying to impress, but to contribute genuinely. The next few hours were filled with preparation. Lyra worked alongside the human crew, learning to operate their equipment and understanding their methods of communication and coordination. She stumbled at first, unfamiliar with their technology and ways of working, but Ethan patiently guided her. He never scolded or belittled her. He simply explained and encouraged. During a practice drill, one of the crew members made a mistake, nearly causing a minor accident. Ethan reacted immediately, helping correct the situation and explaining how to avoid the error in the future. Lyra watched him, impressed by his calm response and the way he turned mistakes into learning opportunities. She realized that humans had a unique resilience, a way of adapting to challenges without blame or fear. As the day drew to a close, Lyra and Ethan stood on a platform overlooking the training area. The suns were setting, casting a warm glow across the city. Lyra turned to him, feeling a mix of curiosity and admiration. "You are very different from anyone I have ever met," she said softly. "Your people, they value things I do not fully understand." Ethan smiled, a gentle expression that made Lyra's heart stir. "And your people value things that I do not fully understand, but that does not mean we cannot learn from each other." Lyra nodded, feeling a sense of clarity she had not experienced before. She realized that this was not about winning admiration or being praised. It was about understanding, respecting, and learning from each other. And in that understanding, a bond could begin to form. The following days were filled with more exploration and observation. Lyra joined Ethan and his crew on expeditions into the glowing forests, the crystal caves, and the rivers that shimmered like liquid light. She learned to navigate the terrain, to analyze the environment, and to work with the humans as part of a team. Each day she felt herself changing, seeing the world through different eyes, appreciating the values and strengths of humans in a way she had never imagined. One day, while traversing a dense forest, they encountered a strange phenomenon. A section of the ground began to shift and tremble, and from it emerged creatures unlike any Lyra had seen before, large, semi-transparent beings that glowed with an inner light. The humans reacted quickly, forming a protective circle around the team. Ethan assessed the situation calmly, giving clear instructions to his crew. Lyra felt fear, but she also felt something else, trust. She trusted the human captain to lead, to protect, and to make the right decisions. She followed his guidance, helping where she could, and marveled at the way he coordinated the crew with both authority and care. After the encounter, when the creatures retreated, Lyra turned to Ethan. "You are remarkable," she said. "I have never seen anyone handle danger so calmly, yet so effectively." Ethan shrugged modestly. "It is not about being remarkable, Princess. It is about understanding the situation, acting wisely, and caring for those around you. Anyone can do it if they are willing to learn and listen." Lyra reflected on his words. She realized that human strength was not about power, status, or displays. It was about courage, intelligence, and empathy. And for the first time, she understood why he had not been impressed by her earlier gestures. He valued things that could not be bought or commanded, qualities that had to be earned through action and choice. As night fell, Lyra returned to the palace, her mind buzzing with thoughts. She had learned much about humans in just a few days, but she also knew there was more to understand. Ethan Gray was not simply a visitor. He was a teacher in ways she had never expected. And she felt a deep curiosity growing within her, a desire to know more about him, about his people, and about the qualities that made humans so resilient and admirable. The stars above Virlia shone brightly, and Lyra stood on her balcony once more, thinking about the lessons of the day. She had begun to understand that admiration could not be forced, that respect had to be earned, and that true connection came from shared experiences and understanding. And she knew that her journey with the human envoy was only just beginning. The day began quietly on Virlia, the twin suns rising slowly over the horizon and casting long golden shadows across the crystal spires of the city. Princess Lyra had grown more accustomed to observing Captain Ethan Gray and his human crew. She had learned to follow without trying to dominate the situation, to listen without judging, and to value actions over appearances. Yet she sensed that a true test of character was approaching. The envoy's sensors had picked up unusual readings from a nearby sector. Ethan called his team together to assess the situation. "It could be nothing," he said calmly, "but we need to be prepared. We will approach with caution and stay alert for any unusual activity." His words were simple, but the confidence behind them reassured everyone. Lyra watched him as he assigned roles to each crew member, balancing caution with efficiency. Unlike many leaders she had seen, he did not demand attention or loyalty. He earned it through his careful planning and care for his people. Lyra decided to accompany him on this mission, feeling that it was the perfect opportunity to observe human decision-making under real pressure. She donned the standard exploration suit, a sleek silver design that allowed freedom of movement and protection from environmental hazards. Ethan gave her a brief nod of approval. "Stick close to the team and follow instructions. We will teach you what you need to know." The journey to the sector was uneventful at first. Their ship glided silently above Virlia's forests, scanning for signs of life. Lyra took in the glowing trees and shimmering rivers below, marveling at how vibrant and alive her planet appeared from above. Yet her attention was constantly drawn to Ethan. He monitored the instruments carefully, made calculations quickly, and occasionally consulted with his officers. His mind moved like a finely tuned machine, but with a warmth that balanced his intellect. Suddenly, an alarm rang out, shattering the calm. "Movement detected," a crew member shouted. The sensors had picked up multiple unidentified objects moving rapidly toward their location. Ethan's expression remained calm, but his eyes sharpened. "All crew prepare for defensive maneuvers. Shields up. Stay alert. Move to positions." Lyra felt her pulse quicken. She had seen threats before, but never like this. The objects on the scanner were approaching fast, and their patterns were unpredictable. Ethan moved with purpose, guiding the crew with clear instructions. He did not panic, nor did he attempt to dominate the situation. Instead, he relied on logic, observation, and trust in his team. Lyra found herself inspired, feeling a new kind of respect for the human captain. The first wave of attackers revealed itself as alien drones, sleek and metallic, moving with precise coordination. They fired energy pulses, striking the area near the human ship. Ethan quickly assessed the situation. Return fire only when necessary. Focus on evasion and protecting the team. Lyra, stay behind cover and observe. Watch how we adapt. Lyra did as he instructed, hiding behind a rocky outcrop and observing. The humans worked together seamlessly, communicating with concise signals and gestures. Ethan led the strategy, guiding their movements, but he allowed his crew to contribute ideas and take action. Lyra realized that human strength lay not just in skill, but in collaboration. Each person's contribution mattered, and leadership was about enabling others to perform their best. The drones pressed their attack, forcing the humans to maneuver through a dense forest of glowing trees. Lyra's heart raced as she watched Ethan navigate the terrain with calm precision. He anticipated the drones' movements, predicting their patterns and adjusting the team's path. Every decision was calculated, yet fluid, showing a combination of intellect and intuition. At one point, a drone fired an energy pulse that struck near Lyra, sending a shower of sparks into the air. She stumbled, momentarily frozen, but Ethan noticed immediately. "Lyra, are you okay?" he called, concern in his voice. She nodded, and he gave her a reassuring glance before returning to the strategy. She realized that humans valued not only skill, but also the safety and well-being of those around them. As the battle continued, Ethan made a crucial decision. He instructed two crew members to set a diversion, drawing several drones away while the rest of the team advanced. The plan required precise timing and trust in one another. Lyra held her breath, watching as the humans executed the maneuver perfectly. The drones were lured away, giving the team the advantage. Once the immediate danger had passed, Ethan gathered the crew to assess their situation. "We need to understand what these drones are and why they are here. We cannot assume anything." His approach was methodical, combining caution with curiosity. Lyra felt herself learning not just strategy, but a philosophy of thinking, of observing before acting, and of valuing intelligence over brute force. They discovered that the drones were sent by a hostile faction, attempting to gain control of Virelia's resources. Ethan analyzed the patterns of attack and realized that these enemies relied on predictable strategies and aggression rather than adaptability. "We will need to outthink them, not just outfight them," he explained. Lyra marveled at how humans could combine intellect and bravery, using both to overcome threats. Over the next few hours, the team worked tirelessly to repair minor damage, set up defensive perimeters, and develop a strategy for future encounters. Lyra participated actively, learning to operate equipment, analyze data, and assist the crew. Each success, no matter how small, gave her a sense of accomplishment that went beyond her usual experience of admiration and status. During a brief pause, Lyra observed Ethan as he checked on each crew member, offering encouragement and guidance. "You are doing well," he said to a young engineer struggling with a device. "Keep going and remember, mistakes are part of learning." His words were simple, but they carried a power that Lyra had never witnessed. Humans respected effort, honesty, and growth, not just skill or rank. Lyra began to understand the subtle differences between her world and the humans. Virelia had always emphasized perfection, beauty, and status. Humans emphasized courage, integrity, and resilience. And in facing danger, those qualities became more important than any display of wealth or knowledge. Lyra felt a growing admiration for Ethan, not for his appearance or his rank, but for his heart, his mind, and his ability to inspire others through action. As evening approached, the team received new intelligence. A larger fleet of hostile drones was moving toward their location, threatening to overwhelm them if they did not act strategically. Ethan called a meeting to discuss their options. "We will need to coordinate carefully. Each decision matters. Lyra, I will need your help observing patterns and assisting the crew with calculations." Lyra nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had never been so directly involved in a real threat before. But she trusted Ethan's guidance, and she knew that the humans valued her contribution as part of the team, not as a token of admiration. The following hours were tense. Ethan led the humans through a series of maneuvers, combining defense, evasion, and counterattacks. Lyra assisted in monitoring the drone's movements and providing strategic suggestions. Every moment was critical, and every decision had consequences. Yet through it all, Ethan remained calm, focused, and encouraging. During a critical point in the engagement, a drone targeted one of the crew members, a young navigator. Without hesitation, Ethan moved to shield him, deflecting the attack with a protective device he had prepared in advance. Lyra watched, her heart pounding. This was not a display of power for show. This was courage, selflessness, and quick thinking in action. Once the immediate threat was neutralized, the team regrouped. Ethan praised their collective effort, not himself. "We succeeded because we worked together and trusted each other. That is what matters." Lyra felt a profound respect for him. Humans, she realized, drew strength not from status or displays, but from values, trust, and shared effort. That night, after the danger had passed, Lyra and Ethan stood on a hill overlooking the glowing forests. The stars above Virlia sparkled, reflecting in the luminescent rivers below. Lyra felt a quiet sense of awe not at the beauty of the planet, but at the human spirit she had witnessed. "You are extraordinary," she said softly. "Not for what you have or what you control, but for how you act and how you inspire others." Ethan smiled, a gentle and unassuming expression. "It is not about being extraordinary, Princess. It is about trying, learning, and caring for those around you. Anyone can do it if they are willing." Lyra realized that she had begun to see humans in a new light. Their strength was quiet but powerful. Their courage was not reckless but deliberate. Their wisdom came from experience and empathy, not from knowledge or status alone. And in understanding this, she felt a new kind of connection forming, not based on admiration or fascination, but on mutual respect and shared values. The events of the day had been a test, not just of skill, but of character. Lyra had seen humans in danger, observed their decisions, and learned the essence of their courage. She understood now that admiration could not be forced, gifts could not command respect, and status alone was meaningless. What mattered was integrity, action, and empathy. As she returned to the palace, Lyra felt a quiet determination. She would continue to learn from Ethan and his people. She would strive to understand their values, their ways, and their strength. And perhaps, in the process, she would discover something new about herself, and the potential for humans and Virlians to work together in ways that neither species had imagined. The morning on Virlia dawned softly, the twin suns casting long golden streaks across the crystal towers of the city. Princess Lyra woke with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. The events of the previous day had opened her eyes to the true nature of humans, their courage, their intelligence, and their ability to inspire through action rather than status or display. Today, she wanted to understand them even more deeply. Ethan Gray had gathered his crew early for another expedition, this time to study a series of mysterious energy anomalies detected near Virlia's northern mountains. Lyra joined them without hesitation, determined to participate fully and observe firsthand how humans approach the unknown. She dressed in her exploration suit, moving with practiced ease, though she felt a flutter of nervous excitement. As they traveled across the glowing forests, Lyra watched Ethan give instructions with calm precision. His leadership was quiet but firm, and his crew responded with trust and efficiency. Unlike leaders she had known in her world, he did not demand attention or obedience. He earned it through clarity, care, and competence. Lyra had come to admire this quality deeply, though she struggled with the complex emotions it stirred within her. The journey to the northern mountains was long and challenging. They navigated through thick forests, crossed luminescent rivers, and climbed steep crystal cliffs. Lyra noted the differences in human endurance. Though they were far from her own physical abilities, they relied on teamwork, careful planning, and clever problem-solving to overcome obstacles. She realized that humans valued adaptability and resourcefulness above raw strength or advanced technology. At one point, a sudden storm swept through the mountains. Fierce winds tore at their suits and glowing rain began to fall, making the rocky terrain slippery and dangerous. Lyra struggled to keep her balance, and for a moment she feared she would be swept away. Ethan noticed immediately, moving beside her with steady hands and calm reassurance. "Hold on to me," he instructed gently. "We will navigate this together. Watch where I step." Lyra clung to him, feeling both fear and trust. She realized that human leadership was not about dominance. It was about protection, guidance, and mutual support. They reached a sheltered ledge where the storm's fury lessened, and Ethan checked on each member of the team, offering encouragement and assistance. Lyra felt a deep respect for the way he cared for every individual, not just the mission. When the storm subsided, they finally reached the site of the energy anomalies. Strange, shimmering lights rose from cracks in the crystalline ground, pulsing with energy that seemed alive. Lyra had never seen anything like it, and she was fascinated by the way the humans approached the phenomenon. They did not rush or panic. They studied, measured, and observed carefully, each action deliberate and coordinated. Ethan assigned roles to the crew, ensuring that each person contributed according to their strengths. Lyra found herself assisting in calculations, monitoring energy readings, and analyzing environmental data. She had expected to be a passive observer, but Ethan treated her as a valuable member of the team. For the first time, she felt the genuine satisfaction of contributing to something meaningful, rather than performing for admiration. As they worked, Lyra noticed Ethan watching her occasionally, not with judgment but with quiet interest. She felt a strange warmth in response, a connection that went beyond words, built on shared effort, mutual respect, and understanding. For the first time, she considered that humans did not form bonds through status or gifts, but through shared experiences and actions. The situation suddenly changed when one of the energy vents became unstable. A surge of bright energy erupted, knocking several crew members off balance. Lyra was thrown backward, her suit absorbing the impact, but the force still stunned her. Ethan reacted instantly, moving to shield the others and stabilize the situation. He directed the team calmly, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Lyra, help me redirect the flow," he shouted. Lyra nodded, moving quickly to assist. Her hands worked alongside his, adjusting equipment and channeling energy safely. Together, they managed to stabilize the vent, preventing what could have been a disastrous explosion. When the surge finally subsided, the crew cheered quietly, and Ethan offered a nod of approval. "You did well," he said to Lyra, his tone calm but sincere. "You handled yourself under pressure." Lyra felt a surge of pride, not from being praised, but from having participated meaningfully in a difficult challenge. She realized that humans valued competence, courage, and quick thinking, not displays or titles. And in that realization, she felt her admiration for Ethan deepen, along with a growing understanding of what it meant to be human. As they set up a temporary observation camp near the energy vents, Lyra took a moment to reflect. She had come to Violia expecting humans to be impressed by her status, her wealth, or her knowledge. Instead, she had found herself fascinated by qualities that could not be commanded or purchased: integrity, courage, empathy, and the ability to inspire through action. She understood, finally, why Ethan had remained calm and distant in her earlier attempts to impress him. He valued deeds, not appearances, and respect had to be earned through shared effort and understanding. That night, while the crew rested, Lyra stayed awake, watching the glowing lights of the energy vents. Ethan joined her silently, sitting nearby without speaking at first. They both observed the shimmering display, feeling the quiet connection of shared experience. "It is beautiful," Lyra said softly, her voice almost lost in the gentle hum of energy. Ethan nodded. "Yes, it is, but beauty alone is not enough. Understanding it, respecting it, and working with it, that is what makes it truly remarkable." Lyra considered his words. They were simple yet profound. Humans did not seek admiration or display power for its own sake. They valued understanding, cooperation, and moral choice. And in that moment, she felt a shift within herself. She no longer wanted to impress him through status or gestures. She wanted to learn, to understand, and to connect. Over the next few days, Lyra and Ethan worked closely together, observing the energy anomalies and recording data. Their teamwork became seamless, each action anticipating the other. Lyra noticed subtle gestures: the way Ethan checked her safety, the quiet encouragement in his tone, the patience he showed even in tense moments. She realized that humans built trust through consistency, care, and mutual effort, not through grand declarations or displays. During a rare moment of rest, Ethan asked Lyra about her life on Violia. She spoke of her childhood, her training as a princess, and her responsibilities to her people. Ethan listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions. Lyra felt seen in a way she had never experienced before, not as a princess, but as a person. She realized that this connection, built on attention, respect, and understanding, was more meaningful than any form of admiration she had sought in the past. As they prepared to return to the city, a sudden alarm warned them of another approaching threat. A new fleet of drones, larger and more advanced than the previous ones, was closing in. Ethan quickly assessed the situation and coordinated the team. Lyra, now more confident in her abilities, assisted in strategy and defense. Together, they managed to evade the first wave and set up a countermeasure that disrupted the drones' formation. After the encounter, Ethan turned to Lyra. "You performed exceptionally. You stayed calm, followed instructions, and contributed to the team's success. That is what matters." Lyra felt a deep satisfaction. She had come to understand that true courage was not in seeking attention or praise, but in acting wisely, protecting others, and working together. She realized that humans valued qualities that her own world often overlooked, and in embracing those values, she felt herself changing. That night, as they returned to the palace, Lyra stood on her balcony, gazing at the glowing forests below. She thought about the lessons she had learned, the importance of patience, empathy, courage, and understanding. She reflected on Ethan's guidance and the quiet strength of his character. And she realized that her feelings for him had shifted from fascination to genuine respect and admiration, rooted in his actions, not his appearance or rank. Lyra understood, at last, why he had rejected her earlier attempts to impress him. It was not personal. It was a lesson, a human way of teaching that respect and connection must be earned through deeds, understanding, and shared experience. And she felt a quiet determination to continue learning, to grow, and to embrace these values fully. As she closed her eyes, Lyra felt a sense of peace and anticipation. The human envoy had come to Violia to negotiate trade and diplomacy, but they had also brought a deeper lesson, a reminder that courage, intelligence, empathy, and integrity were the qualities that truly mattered. And in understanding that, Lyra knew that her journey with Captain Ethan Gray was far from over. It was only just beginning. The morning on Virlia began quietly, but Princess Lyra felt an undercurrent of tension. The hostile drones had returned, larger in number and more organized than before. Captain Ethan Gray had called his team to a strategic meeting, and Lyra joined him without hesitation. Over the past days, she had learned much about humans, their courage, intelligence, and ability to act under pressure. Today, she would witness their strength fully tested. Ethan studied the sensor readings carefully, his calm expression betraying none of the urgency that Lyra felt. "We know their approach pattern," he said. "We have the advantage if we remain coordinated. Everyone must know their role and trust one another. This is not just about strength, it is about strategy, adaptability, and courage." Lyra felt a mix of fear and determination. She had learned to trust Ethan, to rely on his judgment, and to act as part of the team rather than attempting to impress. She now understood that human values were rooted in integrity, teamwork, and resilience, qualities she had begun to admire deeply. The enemy drones appeared over the horizon like a dark storm, moving with speed and precision. Ethan's crew immediately took defensive positions, activating shields and preparing countermeasures. Lyra positioned herself alongside a group of human technicians, ready to assist with energy redirection systems. Her hands worked quickly, applying lessons she had learned during previous encounters. The first wave struck with a barrage of energy pulses. Lyra ducked behind cover, her heart racing, but she stayed focused. She adjusted the redirection panels as instructed, channeling excess energy safely away from the crew. Ethan moved fluidly among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and precise commands. Lyra marveled at his composure, his ability to remain calm while orchestrating complex maneuvers under immense pressure. During the battle, a powerful drone targeted a human engineer struggling with a damaged shield panel. Without hesitation, Ethan moved to intercept the attack, placing himself between the engineer and the incoming pulse. Lyra's heart jumped as she realized the risk he was taking. Yet, he remained steady, deflecting the attack and directing the engineer to safety. "Lyra, help me stabilize the secondary energy conduits," he shouted. Lyra moved swiftly, working alongside him. Her hands shook slightly, but she followed his instructions precisely. Together, they managed to stabilize the system, preventing a catastrophic overload that could have destroyed their position. The humans cheered quietly, but Ethan did not seek recognition. He simply nodded to the crew, his focus already on the next challenge. As the battle continued, Lyra noticed the subtle ways humans adapted. They did not rely solely on technology or brute force. They observed, calculated, and improvised. When a drone broke formation, a small team followed it, predicting its path and neutralizing it before it could cause harm. Lyra realized that human ingenuity lay in their ability to think under pressure, to act decisively while remaining flexible. At one point, Ethan called for a daring maneuver. "We will need to draw them into the canyon," he explained. "The terrain will work in our favor. Lyra, your calculations from earlier will help us anticipate their movements." Lyra nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. She used the data she had collected to adjust energy shields and predict the drone's trajectory. With Ethan leading and the crew executing perfectly, the plan succeeded. The drones were funneled into the canyon, where their movements were restricted, allowing the humans to disable them efficiently. During the aftermath, as the remaining drones retreated, Lyra felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had contributed meaningfully, not to gain admiration, but because she understood the value of action, teamwork, and courage. She looked at Ethan and realized that respect and connection had grown between them, not through gifts or status, but through shared experience and mutual trust. As the crew gathered to assess the situation, Ethan turned to Lyra. "You performed exceptionally today." You stayed focused, adapted quickly, and contributed to the team's success. That is what matters most. Lyra felt warmth rise in her chest, not from pride in being praised, but from understanding that her efforts had real impact. She had come to realize that human admiration was earned through integrity, courage, and cooperation, qualities that she had witnessed in Ethan every day since his arrival. With the drones defeated, the team returned to Virelia's city. Lyra accompanied them, walking beside Ethan as they debriefed. She found herself thinking not about how to impress him, but about how to learn from him, how to understand humans, and how to embody the qualities she had come to respect so deeply. That evening the palace was quiet. Lyra stood on her balcony watching the glowing forests below. The twin suns had set, leaving a sky full of stars. Ethan approached silently, standing beside her without speaking at first. The silence was comfortable, a shared understanding that required no words. "You have changed since I arrived," Ethan said finally, his voice calm and reflective. "You are learning to see things in ways that matter most to humans. Courage, integrity, understanding, these are what define us." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth of his words. "And I am beginning to understand," she replied softly. "I thought I could win admiration through gifts, displays, or status. But I see now that what matters most is action, courage, and care for others. And through that, respect and something more can grow naturally." Ethan glanced at her, his expression unreadable for a moment, then softened. "That is true," he said. "Respect is earned and connection grows through shared experience. It cannot be forced or demanded." Lyra smiled, a gentle expression that reflected both relief and understanding. For the first time, she felt that her curiosity about humans was matched by genuine appreciation, not fascination, but respect. She realized that Ethan's earlier rejections had not been personal. They had been lessons, teaching her the human way of valuing integrity and action above all else. The following days were peaceful. Lyra continued to work with Ethan and his crew, exploring Virelia, studying its unique phenomena, and assisting in scientific research. She no longer sought to impress him, and he no longer remained distant. Their relationship had shifted to one of mutual respect and understanding, built on shared effort, courage, and learning. During one excursion, they encountered a group of native Virelian creatures trapped in a ravine. The team quickly coordinated a rescue, using both human ingenuity and Lyra's knowledge of the planet. Together, they saved the creatures, ensuring their safety without harm. Lyra observed Ethan's careful guidance, his patience, and his emphasis on teamwork. She realized that humans valued life, cooperation, and ethical action above all else, a lesson she had absorbed fully now. That evening, back at the palace, Lyra invited Ethan to walk with her through the gardens. The glowing flora illuminated their path, casting gentle light on the two figures. Lyra paused near a crystal pond, watching the reflections ripple across the surface. "You have taught me more than I ever expected," she said quietly. "About courage, patience, understanding, and about what it truly means to respect others." Ethan smiled, the faintest curve of his lips reflecting warmth. "And you have taught me as well," he replied. "You have shown curiosity, determination, and the willingness to learn. That is rare, even among humans." Lyra felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She no longer sought to be admired. She had discovered the true value of human qualities: integrity, courage, empathy, and shared effort. And through this understanding, she felt a bond forming with Ethan, built on respect, trust, and shared experience rather than appearances or status. Over the following weeks, the humans and Virelians worked together to strengthen their alliance, combining technology, knowledge, and strategy. Lyra continued to participate actively, learning from the humans and contributing her own insights about her planet. She discovered that when two civilizations respected each other's strengths and values, they could achieve far more than either could alone. One evening, As the twin suns set, Ethan and Lyra stood on the highest balcony of the palace, overlooking the city and the forests beyond. The stars shone brightly, reflecting the glowing rivers and luminescent flora below. Lyra felt a profound sense of clarity and peace. She understood that the human way of valuing deeds, integrity, and courage had changed her perspective forever. "You have grown since I arrived," Ethan said softly, his gaze on the horizon. "Not just in skill, but in understanding what truly matters. That is what makes this alliance possible, and that is what makes you remarkable." Lyra turned to him, smiling genuinely. "And you have taught me more than I could have imagined. I now understand why you did not respond to my earlier gestures. It was not rejection, it was a lesson, and I am grateful for it." Ethan met her gaze, and in that moment the bond between them felt complete, not born of status, beauty, or wealth, but of shared experience, mutual respect, and the courage to act with integrity. The human envoy had come to Virlia for diplomacy, but they had also brought a deeper lesson about the power of human values and the strength that came from living them. Lyra felt a quiet hope rising within her. She knew that the humans and Virelians had achieved more than just cooperation. They had begun to understand each other, to value each other's strengths, and to create a foundation for lasting friendship and alliance. And she knew that her own journey of learning, respect, and connection with Ethan was only just beginning, guided by the principles of courage, empathy, and integrity that humans embodied so naturally. As the stars sparkled above Virlia, Lyra and Ethan stood together, not as princess and envoy, but as equals who had earned each other's trust and respect. The lessons of courage, patience, teamwork, and understanding had been learned, and in that understanding, a bond had been forged, stronger than technology, stronger than wealth, and stronger than any title. Princess Lyra finally understood that admiration could not be demanded, respect could not be bought, and true connection came only through action, courage, and care for others. And in that understanding, she smiled, knowing that she had discovered not only the strength of humans, but the strength within herself.